Welcome back to the Goat Cave podcast. Today's guest is one of the biggest names in the BMX world. At the young age of 14, he was one of the 15 riders in the world doing handrails. He was the inventor of the crooked grind and was the first BMX rider to ever ride the mega ramp at the XGames. He has spent years shaping the BMX world. You may know him from within BMX, movies like Mall Cop, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, or the TV show Strangers in Danger with Catfish. You might have even played his playable character in Mat Hoffman's BMX video game series. He's the man that did the grind loop, and I believe the first double peg to backflip. When he isn't jumping out of helicopters, acting, or doing stunts for your favorite movies, you can often find him spending time with his daughter Luna. We are, of course, talking about the one, the only, Mike Rooftop Escamilla. Mike, it's an honor to speak with you. How are you?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm wonderful. This is going to be awesome. All right. So I like to jump right far back, pretty much at the beginning of all of mine. So let's just talk about how you got into BMX.
Well, I grew up in Southern California, and I grew up in a neighborhood that had a lot of kids in it. There was probably between 10 to 12 kids, all within a 3-year range of me. And they all rode bikes, and they were I was the youngest, but they all rode bikes, and so I just started riding bikes with them in the neighborhood. And once we got into junior high and high school, they sort of all got out of bike riding. And then I just kept doing it. We had some local jumps called the Pit in Whittier, which actually, one of the starting members of Metallica used to jump BMX there back in the 80s too. Used to ride there, but I just rode, and then when all my friends got out of it, I met Brian Castillo, who's another bike rider, obviously, and we lived about 12 or 13 miles away from each other, and we just literally rode to each other's houses every day and rode, and that was kind of how it started.
That's crazy, man. It's always super interesting to hear how people like yourself have started out with this kind of stuff. Like for me, it was just I lived in a small town and we didn't really have much else to do, and I managed to find a cheap bike, and it was just fun to kind of jump shit, and then I went from there. So it's pretty interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, for me, it was strange because all my other friends here skateboarded. So, and they all went to high school and junior high with 3 other skaters that ended up being professional skateboarders. So I just rode with skaters the whole time, and Brian Castillo when we would ride together. And it just seemed like it was just what we did. I don't think we really thought about it. That was just, they skated and I rode, and that's it.
Can you remember the first bike that you ever had? Like the first BMX bike, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had small BMX bikes, maybe Murray's or something when I was super young. But the first bike that I had where I started doing tricks was I had a 80, would have been an 89 freestyle. Pro Performer, I think, or Performer, GT Performer. I think it was 89. It was a black one with pink and blue graphics. I got it in the 6th grade. And it was really that summer after 6th grade where I started trying to jump it. And then, getting into that, I had to jump down the street at a church. There was looked like they had maybe dug a hole somewhere or dug stuff out of the playground and just dumped all the dirt in the lawn. And it was a big mound, and we built just one jump to flat off it. And that's where I started learning how to jump, and that was it. That's where it all started.
That's awesome. That's super cool. Do you know what your first sponsorship was at all? Was it Hoffman back in 1995? I feel like it would have been something before that.
No, I mean, I don't know exactly what my first sponsorship was. It's weird that I don't know that, but I know which was the first big company I was supposed to ride for. And it was Family Bike. So there was a bike company called Homeless Bike back in the early 90s, and that all ended, and James Shepard was going to start a company called Family, which was all the people on Homeless, plus Taj, John Pesci, and me. And that was the first company I was supposed to ride for, and it never happened, even though there was ads for it and everything. And then after that, I want to say that I might have ridden for Wilkinson Airlines for about 4 months. I got a pair of bars and a stem And I think GT offered me to ride for him at some point in there, and I said no to ride this bike they were coming out called the Fueler, but I said no. And then sometime around, I think must have been 1995. It would have been the second Merino Valley contest, the F Series contest. I rode for Wilkes at the time, and Matt asked me to ride for him at that contest before it started. And so I basically switched that I rode from Wilkerson to Hoffman at that contest. I didn't even talk to Ron, which is just a dick kid move, but the opportunity came up. And at that point, Hoffman Bikes was like, it was the biggest thing ever, right? It had like Miron and Mira and Thorne, Robinson and Matt and Dave Smith. It was like the ultimate team to be on. And so, and as a kid, I had one whole wall in my room that was all just photos of Mat Hoffman. I had like one photo that was all BMX and then one photo that was all Hoffman. And so for me, it was like, it was everything.
Oh, of course. Hoffman is like an absolute legend. You know, he's definitely done so much for this sport. I would go as far as saying that he's made BMX what it is today, you know?
For sure. 100%.
It's pretty crazy to like get that opportunity to, you know, ride for his company. And like, especially because that just shows that he saw something within you. And especially like when you're a kid, you know, that's all that you really probably thought about was just Hoffman and like how crazy he actually is. You probably looked up to him quite a bit. So
yeah, I mean, I'd already bought a Hoffman at that point. I'm not sure I don't know what frame I was riding when I got on Hoffman, but it could have easily been a Hoffman. I do remember the first bike I got from them was a black one with red stickers. I still have it, and they didn't have any bikes at the time. And Matt has a photo, a ride cover back in the day, doing like a no-footed tail whip off like an extension of a skate park in Texas somewhere, maybe. And it's actually that bike from that cover that was my first Hoffman bike to be sent me.
wow, that's insane. All right, let's see here. So a few years back, you made a new frame with United called the Caveman. I'm going to throw a photo up on screen in a minute. But anyways, I love the design, and the grind plate was such a cool idea. I feel like that's so unique to yourself. How involved were you in the design of this frame? And are you still riding like a frame like that at all?
Yeah, well, that bike, the Caveman, it was meant to mirror the Haro Sport, the 91 Haro Sport, which was the first bike I bought on my own. I believe I was in like probably the 8th grade maybe. And I bought that bike on my own. And it was a platinum, just like almost the same color as the Caveman, the Haro Sport. And I bought it because there was a picture of Mat Hoffman doing a tail foot plant in a ditch on a wall. And it had that platinum bike it had like a neon yellow stickers and, it had neon yellow pedals. It was an Airwalk ad maybe. And I bought that bike. It was the first bike I ever bought. So when we talked about doing this bike, I want to do like an homage to that Bashguard bike. And originally, it was supposed to have a big nylon plastic skid guard, but it was the mold for it was $9,000 or $10,000 just to make it.
Oh wow!
And we decided against it because that was a lot of money for a bike we were only going to make like 90 of or something, or 100 of or something. That would just makes the bike a lot more expensive, right?
Oh, of course.
Brought the cost of the bike a ton. And so we just went with the metal guard, and it did great. I mean, we sold out of them, you know, and I don't know how many people knows, but it's hard to sell bikes nowadays. So, you know, especially a bike that is so different like that, and we sold most of them within a few months, and we're stoked. You know, and I still ride it. It's still the bike I ride.
That's awesome. I was wondering, like, you know, how well those frames would hold up. And I mean, if they can hold up to your riding, then they can hold up to anything, you know? So.
Yeah, I think like that's a sort of I think people have forgotten about how bikes used to be made. Like, I don't know when people said like, oh, that whole thing's going to twist and break. In my head, I'm like, there's zero reason for that to happen. Zero reason. You know, I mean, if you really look at it closely, it is almost exactly the same. The amount of tubing that's extra is like 2 inches. It's 2 or 3 inches. It's barely anything. There's nothing that would make it not hold up.
Oh,
I just think
absolutely.
people forget that bikes used to be a lot different, and nowadays BMX, every bike looks exactly the same.
It is kind of sad that, a lot of the styles of frames and whatnot now, it's so like similar and there's not much that you can really do, especially for like somebody like myself. I had a really cool Sub Rosa frame years ago. It had the double top tubes.
Yeah.
And that was like a one of a kind thing. I've never seen anything like that other than obviously like, the United frame that you did where you have like the bottom bracket covered by the down tube and whatnot. But yeah, I just think that's something that like
those double top tubes used to happen back in the late 80s.
Oh, of course, I knew that, but
in the early 90s too. So those were all just throwbacks to older bikes, and look at they held up,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of sad that like, it's definitely pretty difficult for companies to try and make something different, especially with like the way that people are about change, I guess. I feel like every change that's happened within like, the designing of frames and whatnot has been very, very, very slow.
Well, the word freestyle has left BMX, so
yeah,
you get a very specific thing, and and that's just like that. That's not like a diss or anything. That's just what it is now. So it just times change, and this is the time we're in now. People, like have a very selective, narrow view of what things should be.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. One thing that I noticed is that you actually do ride a coaster, and you've rode one for quite a while, it seems. When did you hop on the coaster?
Well, it was a free coaster. I probably been running a free coaster for like, it's got to be like 15 years or something now.
Yeah, it seems.
I had these delusions of grandeur that I was going to get like towed backwards into these big gaps and like half cab them like these huge gaps, but that became real apparent real quick that was never going to happen.
Yeah, it seems like you were definitely an early adopter of the coaster because even like, 8 years ago, there really wasn't too many people riding them yet, or at least in like Southern Ontario. There still was a lot of pros that were still on cassette, and now it seems like so strange if somebody does ride a cassette. I do personally. But yeah, like I just never really see anybody riding cassette anymore.
Well, I mean, the applications for being able to do stuff backwards have its benefit. There are some things that it does make a little harder sometimes or sketchier. Like I think that landing backwards fast from certain tricks is hard because you could engage, like depending on how hard and the angle you land at. But it's just I think it lends to being able to do more things. Period.
Yeah, of course. I'm trying to think of like a couple of really good free coaster riders right now. There's like so many. Yeah, Pat Casey is really good. We actually just had
Pat Casey is the only one, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Pat Casey. I mean, there's plenty of people who are doing backwards stuff. Every once in a while, I did see a clip of someone doing like a massive half tab down into a ditch. That was pretty cool. But Pat Casey is the only one that's really taken the opportunity to. So there was Kurt Schmidt who really started doing the wild stuff. I mean, Rick Molterno and Kurt Schmidt all rode that stuff, but Kurt Schmidt was the first person I had seen that really did. He was jumping spines backwards and doing all sorts of backwards stuff in the lip tricks. And since then, the only real person that's taken it to that level is Pat Casey. Pat Casey, he's using the free coaster the exact reason it was designed for once Kurt Schmidt got a hold of it. He's the only, and the only reason he's the one who does it is because it's really, really hard. And he's doing stuff that and he's so far advanced above everyone that I don't even think people can really appreciate it because they can't understand how hard it is.
Yeah, Pat Casey definitely, I think he deserves like so much more credit for the riding that he does. He is so unreal. And like,
yeah.
We actually, I had the builders on a couple weeks ago that built Pat Casey's like newer section for his ramp, and they were telling me like, you know, how tall that stuff actually is and how big it is, and it's not to fuck around on, you know. So it's
it's massive. I mean, I've never ridden it. I've seen it. I've seen it from the road too. But it's real. It's big, which is rad that they built all the new stuff, because I always get confused when you have these guys like these top pros who they get these backyard setups and they just build the dumbest shit back and forth ever, and it's really bizarre to me to see it, and it's such a shame. And then to see his yard evolve into something that looks fun to ride is awesome. Because when he first built it, I was like, oh, another box jump, quarter pipe, back and forth spine setup. Like, but it's evolved into something, and his riding has evolved into something that is next level.
Oh, of course. It is kind of weird that, like, you know, people that are BMX riders aren't creative enough to figure out a different ramp style, I guess. You know, I guess it's nice to have that same thing, because that is what a lot of them ride, but I think it's kind of nice to go outside of the box like Pat Casey did.
I think that, like, creativity is a thing that is missing in BMX. There's a difference between creativity and talented people. There is a overflow of talented people in bike riding, but not a ton of creativity. And it's weird, in the last few years, I've noticed that creativity turned into, like, just doing dumb shit. Like, people were doing things that were stupid that they were calling creative, and you're like, no, that's not creative. That's just like it almost to me felt like a lack of creativity. You know, like when people started doing like grinds and then putting their foot down and fast planning over ledges they were grinding on, you're like, stop it. That's just what you do when you're learning to grind and you are messing up. Like when you were crashing, you foot planted out of a grind. Don't turn that into something and call it a trick. I do believe though that BMX is lacking creative people. There are some out there, but I think there used to be. I felt like everyone was creative before in their own way, and now I feel like everyone's really, really good. Like the amount of talent is more talent than there's ever been, but people are lacking creativity. What to do with that talent? It's like right now, there's people who can bunny hop higher than anyone's ever be able to bunny hop, and for some reason, the video parts are filled with them grinding things that are literally lower than my kneecap. If I could bunny up that high, I would only be grinding things that no one else could. I'd be grinding fences and things that divided property lines instead of curbs. It's really bizarre to me. It's bizarre to see so much talent and seeing a lack of how to use it.
So that's actually a really good segue into my next topic here, which was how do you feel about the current state of BMX? Do you think that the style of mid-school riding needs to come back? I feel like people don't go as fast or big for the most part, and instead focus on like super tech tricks, and that's just something I'm not that big of a fan of. Like I actually have filmed 2 full-length videos, and both parts that I had in it were pretty much just filled with big, fast gaps, because that's the kind of stuff that I'm into. And like I just can't do that small techie stuff. It's just not fun for me. But yeah,
it's hard for me to give an honest opinion about that, because I think that's what BMX is right now. I don't think it's better or worse than before. I just think that's what it is. I personally don't get as excited about it. I mean, there are still guys like Dennis Anderson and Nathan Williams and Corey Martinez, and they're dudes who are doing gnarly stuff. But I do feel like, I mean, when you turn Instagram on, it's bizarre to me if you turn one of the magazines on Dig or Our BMX or whatever, and it's literally every clip is the same shit. Like and the thing is I'm not talking about how difficult and how hard what they're doing is. We know that. I know, these are better riders than I've ever been, but like, I just don't understand how kids and people just, or even as a pro rider, you're like, hey, I just saw this dude do a nose wheelie across the street, up, down the street, up a curb, over a gap. I'm going to go film the exact same thing on my block. Like, it's weird to me that there's so much of the same. And I know it's not the same, but it feels like that when you're watching it as a whole. I feel like I'm just watching the same stuff over and over again, instead of seeing, and rarely do I see something different where I'm like, oh, this dude's thinking, like, this dude's doing his own stuff. But I don't really necessarily, I don't know if I have an answer to say that is it better or worse, or does it need something else. I just think it's like a phase. It'll go through this phase, and then it'll be in the next phase. And probably maybe all the people who are into this phase will hate the next phase. But that's just the nature of the beast. I just think that it's definitely in a place that lacks actual creativity.
No, I can definitely agree with you.
Yeah, there's an overflow of talent and not enough people doing their own thing.
I can definitely agree with you. I always wonder too if maybe that's just because we are so we have cell phones now. You don't have to wait for the next video to come out or anything. It's right there in front of you at all times. I wonder if it's just an overflow of so much content in front of you constantly, or if it is because there's definitely quite a few. There's definitely quite a few riders that still have that mid-school vibe, at least. Ratty Matty is a really good one, I believe. He's really he does those big foo-fanoos and whatnot. He's a bone death rider, if you're not sure who he is.
No, I know he is.
Yeah, he's crazy. I like him. Yeah, I definitely can agree, though, that, it is. I always find it with video parts is that people are really the same with the way that they create a video part, It's always the same B-roll clips, the same style music, the same clips, I guess.
I would say video parts are. I came from the video part era. I think that era is ending. You do make a point. Maybe it's because people are inundated with so much content all the time, every day, that there's not enough time in between. Usually, as a kid, not usually, but when I was younger, you'd see a video and you'd be like, "Oh my god, these dudes." Well, not even me, because I was off to the races before that sort of thing, but it was kind of you saw a magazine and you're like, look at these guys, someone's doing this, let's work, we should do this or whatever. And you had to wait for the next thing to see what happened. So you had all this time in between when you saw something to the next time that you could try to learn it and then be creative and sort of let it mold into your version of it. But now you see something today, you learn it, tomorrow there's something new. There's no time in between to allow yourself to influence those things that you're seeing. Also, I do think that people have forgotten how to make video parts, how to make epic video parts, because I do see video parts nowadays that are just they're parts that could be epic video parts, and they're edited in a way and presented in a way that you're going to forget about them tomorrow. And it's super strange to me. And it's a bummer because I know how hard these dudes work for stuff. And some of it has to do with music rights. It's a little bit harder to get, but I just think that people have this idea of wanting to be this chill rider, chill clips from yesterday bullshit. And you're like, dude, you could make a video part that will rival there's so many video parts that come out, and I would say there's at least 5 or 6 a year that could rival the video parts that you think hold up against time. The big ones that you might think of over the last 15 years. But because of the way they're edited, you just forget about them in a week. And it's crazy to me.
No, that's a really good point, though. I definitely think that, as somebody who does editing and filming and whatnot, it's really important to whoever is on that side of things to really show what that rider can do. My thing is I'm really not a fan of slow-mo, so I really don't use it. I think it's overused, especially with Instagram. Every clip is slow-moed when it doesn't need to be. There's so many things where it's just a person doing a hot bar and it's slowed down for some reason. That's just something for me, I just can't appreciate it. I like when you can watch something at the full normal speed and see exactly how it was done. I don't know. That's just my thoughts, at least.
Yeah. I think there's a time and place for everything. I just think that people have forgotten how to make a video part that is going to change the sport and change the way people feel about how they ride their bike. And they're going to put that video on to ride. Nowadays, and I may just be talking about my age and that I don't care that much, but I do. There are video parts, every one that come out, and I'm like, wow, that's one's gonna. I've been around long enough to know when a video part comes out and knows that one's gonna stand the test of time. And you see plenty of videos that have the clips in it to do it, but they just aren't presented in a way that reach that feeling, what you need when you're watching it to really connect with the audience.
I like that. That's yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from. So I would say over the last 10 years, BMX has been through some pretty big changes. Like I said earlier, the internet and social media have kind of killed BMX magazines and DVDs. So let's talk about the importance of, like, just full length parts, as well as how much it means to you to have like a cover on a actual magazine and what that does for, the community, rather than just getting a post on Instagram from like a, Our BMX or something like that.
Well, I mean, I think it's a sad state of affairs when a sport doesn't have a magazine. I know that the world's changing, but even if it's just a digital magazine, or some sort of media in general around it, I do think that when it comes to magazines, it's been a long time since we've had creative people at a magazine in a group. And I'm not saying that no one's creative. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it takes more than one creative person. It takes a creative person with an idea, and whoever's in charge or believes in them to put that idea out and let them run with it. There's an overflow of talented people. There's plenty of people who can shoot photos and write and do things, but that doesn't always like it's just like BMX. I think having people who work in the magazine is just like having just like bike riding. There's so many talented people. You look at Instagram, so many people are doing stuff that's so amazing, and there's a couple of them that are doing stuff that you're like, holy shit, dude, this is something different. And I think it's the same thing. You need those same kind of people in a magazine, and I think we haven't had that in decades. And I think that shows, and it slowly dies into one version of things and one kind of bike ride. I mean, for the longest time, I felt like the media was always on the fence, right? There was never a good and never a bad. So it kind of would put anything would go in the magazine. And if there's never a good and a bad, then there can really never be anything great, because everything is just sort of the same. It's a weird, bike riding's at a weird spot when it comes to media. I do think that full length parts are amazing. I 100% believe that they don't matter anymore. I don't think they move product. I don't think they do anything. I think the days of having superstars in BMX is over. I think the people who are superstars now are the people who are still lingering from the generation of video parts and magazines. Because it feels like something concrete that you can hold and touch. And now everything is just like, like I said, there's so many good people. I watch some video clips. I'm like, I don't know who this dude is. And without somebody pushing it to make him the star, that it doesn't, everything takes marketing, and everything takes someone saying, hey, this is the guy. So it's a sad state of affairs when that happens. And as a pro rider, video parts are so important because it gave you something, it gave you a product to finish at the end of the day. And like, to me, that was always important, that I was like, oh, the last year, here's a product that I've created, instead of being like, hey, here's my Instagram feed, which feels not nearly as satisfying.
Would you say that, the feeling of getting your photo in a magazine is something like, to me, that was always something that, I just wanted some sort of, not attention, I guess, but just something from BMX where it shows like, that people are stoked on what you're doing. Because I think no matter what, most people on bikes are pretty happy that you're also riding. At least that's the way that I feel. And like, to me, I got quite a few things posted, like reposted through Ride UK, and like recently just through a bunch of different BMX, platforms and whatnot. And it's always something where like I feel, accomplished, that somebody appreciates the stuff that I'm doing. Do you feel the same way at all about like a magazine cover or just like having an article and whatnot?
I mean, yeah, it's different for me because it's been so long, right? I've been doing it for so long. But I mean, I haven't had a photo in a magazine in years. I mean, I guess no one has really, but,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was always great to feel like you were recognized and that you felt like you were part of something, and that what you were doing was I don't want to say the word, I don't want to say it was working, but what you were doing meant something, because you're like, oh, if it means something to them and they think it's important enough to put it out there, and they only have 75 photos they can put out this month in the whole world, and mine's one of them. You're like, okay, we're doing this. You know, we're doing our job. We're doing. It feels like you're doing something for sure. So 100%. But at the same time, I don't. You know, the world's changed so much, and the way people see stuff, that kids may view getting an Instagram post on Dig or something may feel the same way to them. I don't know if I think it's unfair of me to make a decision saying one is better than the other. I just don't think they know any different.
No, I can definitely agree. You know, it is something where a lot of the people that are riding now, they don't really know too much about the history of BMX, or at least I feel that way.
Oh, no. BMX is a strange sport where as soon as you're not the guy, they do everything they can to get rid of you. And if you're instantly, you could be the guy that instantly you're like, you're an old man, get out of here. It's crazy. It's super sad, because you'll see tricks that people will do and they'll be like, never been done. You're like, actually, it was done in the 80s. You know, it's a weird sport. Tricks will get renamed. It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ninja Drop. I think maybe Ron Wilkerson or somebody invented them back. I think maybe Ninja Drops. And then all of a sudden, I started doing a thing called a caveman in the 2000s. The first one I ever did was the in the 90s, where it's like a running caveman. It's a running ninja drop. You jump over a gap.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now ninja drops are called caveman. And knack-knacks are different. And all hurricanes, all these tricks are like, they've just changed. And the media and everyone just goes along with it, because I'll see them post it too. And you're like, you goddamn well know that that's not the trick name. Like, what are you doing? It's the weirdest thing to me. It's strange to watch a history of something just change because of somebody who didn't know the name of it says it, and then everyone else just goes along with it. It's so weird. I mean, I could go on forever with tricks. We, as BMXers, we can't even call tricks right. It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple tricks that everyone calls wrong every time, and I'm baffled by it. Like downside 360 whip. I'm baffled by that trick, because neither they are going 360 nor are they doing a tail whip. They're literally just doing a kicked out decade and then going back to normal. It's the weird. An actual 360 tail whip would be a double downside whip. So what they call a double downside whip 360 to me is what a 360 downside whip would be.
Yeah.
Bike tail whips once and you tail once. Because if you think about it like this, you know what a downside 360 looks like on a box.
Yep.
What does a downside 180 look like? What does a downside 180 look like off a rail? He kicks it, he goes 180, bike kicks 180, and he lands. You know, they go the opposite direction, lands on it.
Yeah.
So if you did a 360, if you did that 360, what would happen? He would pass the bike and then meet it back where he started.
Yeah.
That would be a downside with 360. But we've decided it's weird to me, and everyone goes along with it. The other day, I saw some clip of Mike. What's his name? Dude used to ride for Red Bull. He went. I don't know I don't know why I can't think of his name. He's from California out here, but he did it was the XGames, and it looked to be like a 540 tail whip to bar spin or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
A 540 tail whip to downside whip. And if you watched it, he doesn't 540 and do it. He just does a tail whip a decade air. It just looks weird, but people call it. It's just the strangest thing to me. It's so weird. It's so weird that we live in a time where we're just like, we'll just call it that, and that's what it'll be. Which it doesn't take anything on how rad it is. It's just weird to me.
Right. Now, actually, you bring up a good point.
Sorry, I went on a little tangent there. Sorry.
No, that's A-okay. So you made, a point there that BMX names throughout the years have changed and whatnot. One name that, seems to not die and has had a lot of controversy this year was actually the half cab. So for the people that don't know, for years, Steve Caballero has been trying to get the half cab renamed within BMX, just saying that it's not a half cab, it's a half bunny hop, because you can't do an ollie on a skateboard. That was pretty much his argument. Do you know any of the backstory on that, and do you have any opinions on it at all?
I mean, I'm friends with Steve. I just don't care.
Right.
I mean, to me, I think it's an honor if a different sport adopts something that you named and it's the same trick, basically, you know, the same movement. I think you're getting upset about who cares. Like, I think you just take it as an honor. I don't care, nor do, like, I don't care that Steve said that. He can feel however he wants. And I think it's even more silly that everyone, the BMXers got mad about it too. Like, who cares? Like, it just is what it is. At the end of the day, it's not going to doesn't affect anybody. I'm still going to go out and do it. I'm still going to half cab something, and it's not going to change because at this point, changing the name just sounds stupid.
No, I can definitely understand that. My thought from it was like the same as yours, is where, you know, I personally think he should look at it as an honor that the name of that trick has been, you know, a staple within skateboarding, BMX, like snowboarding, everything. Like so many different sports refer to that as a half cab, you know? So I personally feel like he should use it as an honor.
I mean, I don't know the history. Like, I mean, you could say the same thing about a Smith and a Feeble and a manual. I don't know. I like a manual. I don't know if they did manuals first and named that on a bike or a skateboard. I have no idea. But there's a bunch that cross over that it's just like, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. My thing too was like, I definitely thought like a lot of BMX dudes overreacted about it. Like there was so many people that were like making, you know, just so many ridiculous claims on his like social media and stuff. And like the guy, honestly, he said one thing, you know, maybe he shouldn't have, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. Like, I just hate the fact that like, you know, people were all willing to gang up on him on something so silly.
Look, I mean, Steve's a super nice guy. I've known him for 20 years. He can feel however he wants. But to me, it should have been those things that he said that. Okay, that's how he feels. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I just don't. And plus, I don't have time to care about shit like that.
Yeah, that's fair. Oh man. So while we're on the topic of inventing tricks, so I read online somewhere that you actually were the inventor of the crooked grind on a BMX. I will say that's definitely my favorite grind trick. It's just such a good feeling trick on a rail. Can you remember the first time you did it and where?
Yeah. I had, first time when I started practicing it, I probably was 14 years old or something, 13 or 14 years old. And, I had gone to work with my dad, and for whatever reason, what I'd do is I would go to his work, and then he was like working a business park, and I just would pedal around the business park and all over, because it was, you know, a few towns away, and just ride stuff. And there was a little yellow grind bar in where it must have been Anaheim or something, and not far from Brian Castillo's house, a little metal grind bar. I say it was little. It was funny. It was a little penny grind bar. It was probably only 10 feet long and probably like a foot off the ground. And it was one that I was like, oh, it was like your foam pit for grind rails. And one you're like, ooh, I could do stuff on this and I'll never get hurt. And it's, you know, but you could never film anything on it. And I swear to God, it's the same size of what shit people ride today. And this was 1991, probably 92. And so I learned it on that. I learned it on this, but I could never really get it good because I would get kind of stuck and I would like grind and then have to try to hop back over. I always tried to go off the end, you know?
Right.
But I was going, and at that time you could only crooked grind one direction. So it had to be back left peg, front right peg, because of the way your sprocket was. They were too big. The other way your sprocket would hit. So until small sprockets, you could only do it one direction. And that to me was switch for me. So it always felt opposite. It's always felt weird a little bit too. And then while filming Dirty Deeds, this is the video part we filmed 93, 94, I think, came out in 95. I was trying to get this jump over rail, and it was down a handicap bank, and I ended up going crooked on one of them, and it just locked in, slid, and just came off the end. And that's the one that's in the video. And that was by accident. Like I was trying to go back, and then I started doing them. After that clip, I was like, oh, I'll do some. I didn't even think about it because it was bigger than anything I'd ever done it on. And because I just done it on little tiny stuff. And like I said, I didn't get my back wheel over and it just locked in. And then that was it. And then I started doing it. And that's how it came about. And I just called it a crooked grind because you were crooked. That was it.
That's awesome. It's so cool that like you actually were able to invent something, you know? There's definitely nowadays it's really difficult for anybody to come up with something like that, you know? I don't know if it's just because you know, the potential of new tricks on a bike are so difficult and like the time and whatnot, but you know, it's not very like common that you see a new trick come out like that.
I mean, I think in Dirty Deeds, I think there's like 10 in never been done rail tricks now in that video part of mine. But that was just because it was a time like I'd seen Trash, which is by far to me, Homeless Trash is the best bike video in the history of bike riding. And I know there's a thing right now going on Instagram where pros are calling out other guys to name their top 10 videos. And I know it has to do with era of when you rode, which would dictate which videos you're into. But Homeless Trash, to me, there's no way any video can't be the number one because it is the basis for all modern day street riding. Is that video?
That's super
Every
crazy.
Every other video is just a exaggerated
version of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm a pretty young dude, so I really started this podcast to start learning more about BMX and whatnot. So it's good to, you know, sit down with you because you've got such a good story about BMX, you know?
Oh, well, it's because I'm 100.
Alrighty. So what do you think BMX needs more of nowadays?
It doesn't need more of anything. I think it's fine. You know, I mean, it's like I said, I think it is everything is a product of its environment and the time. For me, it doesn't, the what is popular, kind of riding is popular, isn't as fun to me, but that is in no way me saying that it isn't any good. It's just not the kind that I enjoy. But then I shouldn't enjoy it either, right? I've been doing this for a long time. I think it could use less of stuff, not more of stuff. I think there's a surplus of people who are sponsored. Like I sometimes I'll see some people who are sponsored and have frames. I never even heard of these guys, and let's be honest, they're not. They're good riders, and what they do looks fun. But there's a difference between good riders and professional riders. And when you got guys like, well, I don't want to name names, but when you got guys who aren't up to par, and you're giving them the same title as dudes like Dakota Roach and Nathan Williams and dudes like that, you're lessening what those dudes do. You know, and when you're not elevating the dudes who shouldn't be pro. You're taking down the people who are. Like it's like when you see a video, like when Ride or Dig posts the video of like Dakota Roach or something, and he's worked a year on filming a video part, and the next day posted right above it is Johnny's backyard scrap leftover chill clip.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And all you've done is and let's say Monster or whoever has spent a ton of money helping make this the Dak part. I don't even know if Dak rides for Monster. I have no idea. But you know, you're taking away from what the level of what he did, you know, and put the other people like on the pedestal with them, when I think you're just lessening how hard they work and giving out the same amount of coverage to dudes who aren't there. And that's not to say, I mean, you could argue like, well, it's great. It's a great platform for people to get noticed. But yeah, maybe there should be another section of the website for that. But when you're putting them right next to it, it's like, you know, it's like saying, It's like watching the Batman TV show from the 60s or whenever it was, and then watching The Dark Knight and saying they're the same.
No, absolutely. I think it has to do a lot with, like, you know, obviously the way that things are nowadays with social media and whatnot. It's all a numbers game, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's a numbers game. That's the problem. Is it's just how many clicks we can get, keeping people, and having to have new stuff. I get it. I understand why it's like that, and I don't necessarily have an answer for it either. But I just know that it's not doing anybody any favors. It's not, except for the people who don't deserve to be there. And I don't even know if deserve is the right word, but I just think that when teams put dudes on the team, if you got, you know, if dudes put, if let's say Van's still on fit, right?
pardon?
Van Homan's still on fit, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so like you got dudes like Van Homan and these other dudes on fit, and then you have like a couple of the dudes who you're just like, who is this dude? And you see his clips, you're like, why is this dude like? It looks like he's having fun riding his bike, and that's great, but you're not bringing him up to their level. You're just taking the rest of the dudes on the team down. And to me, that is not a good thing for anyone.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Like, I think it is kind of, you know, an insult to legends like Van and whatnot that, you know, I don't know if he has a pro frame anymore. I know that he had like pro completes for years and whatnot, but yeah, I don't know if he has a pro frame anymore, but I definitely know that there's people on there that, you know, might not deserve it that have it. So,
well, and I hate to use Van as an example because I just, you know, I know everyone knows who Van is.
yeah.
And I don't pay attention enough to know everybody, but it's just, I just think there's a different level. Like, I feel like before there were pros and now there's just like, if you ride, you're pro.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can do these five clips, bunny hop whip, hang five, nose manuals, 180 bars, and crooks, then you're a pro.
And it's funny because I bet that half the people that do the crooked grind don't even realize that you're the inventor of it, you know? At least, like...
I mean, I don't... I do remember, I won't name who, but I remember that we were at something and one younger rider fully fully dissed me to my face and started talking shit to me at a premiere, and it was his video, and I don't know what it was about. And then the first three tricks in his... He was just saying that I was old and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I remember the first three clips in his video part I invented. And I was like, oh, well.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But you know, it's good. It's just, I just think that, some of these riders today are so good and so talented that they deserve to stand out, and they're getting lost in this mess of media.
Exactly. Yeah, it is pretty crazy that, like, you know, that would actually happen. I feel like certain, like, younger people, I think it's just not, I don't want to say it's like, you know, a young generation thing for BMX that people are just douchey like that, but I think it's, you know, just shitty people sometimes, obviously. Like, you can't have perfect people all the time, but...
I mean, look, there's a thing to say about age and youth. I mean, there was a time when I was probably that kid, so, you know, it is what it is. By the way, I'm watching right now. I'm watching online right now.
Yep.
And if you could take that bottle opener and just go ahead and put it in your mouth.
It's hilarious, eh? Oh, fuck. Oh, right. So there's a clip that I feel like you might be infamous for, and that is the rail loop. Let's talk about how the rail loop...
The rail loop or the grind... Wait, the rail loop or the grind flip?
The grind flip, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Or,
different things.
Oh, sorry, the rail loop. And then we'll talk about the grind flip afterwards. But the rail loop, it just seems so insane to me. So that was an idea that was put onto the Nitro Circus show, right?
Yeah.
So how did that come to be a thing?
I mean, I think I don't really remember, but I remember they asked me if I want to do something, and I said I want to do a grind loop. And Nate Wessel, we got together and we figured out how to build it, what we thought. And looking back now, I realized we built it just slightly wrong. We had to do some modifications on the day to make it work. And then there was one thing when I came out of it, we just built it a little bit wrong. So when I would come out of it, I should have come out of it, come straight for a while, and then dropped onto the ground. But I kind of came out of it and met the ground. And that little kink was too harsh to get. Like you're so busy trying to get around it that it's like hitting a kink. You know what I mean? And it kind of folded me off my bike when I did go around it. But I did hear that there might be an event coming soon that may have a grind loop for people to try. Jeez.
I wonder what event that is. I'm not going to.
I heard that the possibility. I hope that I did mention that I would help share any knowledge I had on the construction of it, of mistakes we made, so that possibly it could be made so that it gives people the best opportunity to try to get around it.
Yeah, it's like insane that was even attempted, you know? And like,
yeah, I don't think people realize how deadly it is. I think people looked at it and was like, oh, it's all 4 pegs, super easy. It's not.
No.
It was like one half pedal too much and you were going too fast. One half pedal too little and you didn't have enough speed. You also, what people don't realize is that 4 peg friction is a killer.
Oh, absolutely.
It steals your speed. The second you start grinding, you lose speed. Also, on the one we built, there's only a 4-inch gap in between. And if your tires hit at all going around it, like sideways on each side, it would eject you off your bike. So you had to, when you went into it, at least the one we built, when you went into it, you had to be perfectly lined up to get that curve, that sort of corkscrew angle of your body positioning right to come out of it. Because if you weren't leaned and you hit the edge of it, you would just get ejected. I mean, that probably took 60 to 70 tries to get around from the time I first started going on it.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. That clip it's ridiculous. And I think that, you know, just the fact that it was on Nitro Circus and they obviously have a time limit would have put so much pressure on you. And, you know, you really only see...
Yeah, that's slam. So let me walk you through this. So back up again. So right before this, I went around it, and before this clip happened, I went around it, and I came out of it a little bit, and then clicked back in and came around, and one of my buddies threw a pad in because he heard me come out of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I just said I would have come out of it, and so I said, no matter what, I'm going. No one throw a pad, and that was the next clip. Me just getting killed like that. Like, I'm lucky I'm not paralyzed. That could have been way worse.
Yeah.
And then I cracked some ribs and cracked an ankle, and I took like a 10-minute break, wrapped my ankle with duct tape, and then pedaled into it for the final try that you see. And if you look at it, I come around, and as soon as I go from pipe to cement, the cement floor is really slick, and I hit that little kink a little bit, and I'm kind of like a little bit off weight on my side, and I just slide out. But yeah, this clip was pretty heavy, man. Pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And so the one that you pulled...
Well, I mean, I don't pull it. I come out of it and I slide out. But the one before that, it was a better one that he threw the pad in. But I'll be honest with you, like I don't need to ever do this. See right there, I kind of hit a kink there, and I'm kind of angled, and it just kicks me off. Just kicks me off. As soon as I hit, I come around, and then I just kind of run into the ground a little bit, and that's it. Game over.
Yeah, I think it's still insane that you got as close as you did. And do you think that you ever could have pulled that had it been, you know, fixed the proper way so that you're not hitting the kink, or even just done on that one?
I mean, I think I would have come out on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, you were so close on that.
I was told I was told this is your last try. It was like midnight or 1 o'clock, and they had to shut it down. They were like, we don't have the building anymore, like, or whatever it was. So they were shutting it down. It's like, this is the last one. Yeah, I think I would have done it on that one.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell from the way the angle is on the video, but like I just kind of hit this kink a little bit, and my body's just not in a position to absorb it a little bit, and that was it. That was it. Game over.
Yeah, I'm just about to play it again. Here we go. Yeah, you can tell that like you're just not really ready for that last bit, right? Like,
And I probably would have come out a little squirrely, but it's right there. You see it. As soon as I hit it, it just woggles my body.
yeah.
If you watch it, like as soon as I go to where it is, my body just kind of like goes, oh, see it right there? And then and I just throws my body kind of cockeyed way, and then the ground's so slick, I just slide out. Like I even think that if the ground was just regular cement, I might have muscled out of that with a wiggly, like I might have come out of it a little bit.
No,
There's no reason for me to be. There's no reason for me to at that point for my body to do that. I'm around perfect right there, and then. Bloop.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. The floor has got to be a big part in that, and I feel like most people wouldn't know unless they've been to a indoor park that has like polished floors like that.
I mean, you can look at it there and the
Yeah.
reflection of it almost.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, whatever. It would have been nice to do it, but I don't. For me to do that again, I'd have to have a reason to do it, and you kill yourself on that, man.
Yeah, it's just so ridiculous. So, would you say that the rail loop was the hardest thing you've ever done on a bike?
Yeah, I think so. It was the hardest, and had the most consequence. Well, I don't know if it had the most consequence, but it was hard, and it had a pretty terrible consequence. But it's not like a regular loop where if you crash a regular loop, you fly off it and slam into that wall and slide down. You're just slamming into a rail and nothing. And
Yeah.
you know, and you're locked in, so it's not like you come off like a flip and come to your feet. You're just piling into the ground. Like every time you do it, it's a crash or a pool. There's no in between.
Yeah, I wonder what if there's any way to make it any safer. There's definitely not, like it's got to be like that in order for it to work. But
yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, well, it's got to be like that for it to work and not be a chicken shit.
Yeah,
you can always make things like a safe version of it, but
that's fair.
Yeah, it's like the grind flip. When I did the grind flip, I built that rail. I didn't really have much help. I went to the park. I put it up the end of the sidewalk and built some boxes and did a flip in. Like I tried to grind it and flip into the boxes. I didn't have it. Boxes were expensive and I couldn't afford a lot. And so I had enough for maybe like 10 tries off it. And I only got off the end twice. And I got off the end twice and I got upside down and landed on my chest into the boxes. I'm like, okay, let's go do it. And the following weekend, we put it there. And I could have put it into like just a grass hill, but I wanted to make it as real as possible because I knew people were going to have a problem with me building this rail in the first place. But, it took that. Just to get that done was probably 50 or 60 slams. Every time I went off, I just got ejected down it off the side. I only got upside down twice. One time I landed, I kind of ended it, hit my chest. And then this time I did it. But that's why I'm wearing gloves because my knuckles are grind down to the bone. If I was just bleeding over everything, so I'd wear gloves.
Yeah, it's so insane that you did that. And there's somebody else, I forget his name, but he was doing a flip off the rail as well like that. And I think he managed to do flip bar.
Scottish guy.
Yeah, I forget his name.
I don't know why. I honestly, I'm friends with them, and for some reason, my old age is I just don't know why. I can't think of it. Give me 2 seconds. I don't know. why I can't think of it. But he actually did it in a warehouse and slammed pretty damn hard. And then we talked. And we talked about the rail and how he did it and what was the problem and his thoughts on it. And then he redesigned it a little bit, and went back at it and did it for a TV show. And he dropped in and did it to flat. Yeah, but he was doing it to flat too, which is not a fun crash either.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty heavy.
Yeah, his was really gnarly, and I don't know why I'm blanking out in my head. That's so unlike me.
Yeah, it's definitely like, it's pretty crazy. I wonder if somebody will ever do Peg's flip whip. You know, I feel like there's too much going on there. I don't know. I mean,
I think he did Peg to flip bar.
Yeah. I don't see why whip couldn't be done then, I guess.
No, you could do it. Yeah, anything does it.
Oh, of course. So let's this is something I like to try and ask pros is would you be able to name off some of the most important people in the BMX world that kids should do their research on? I'm talking about the people that have forever changed BMX.
I mean, Mat Hoffman, obviously, Dave Mira, all the dudes who were on home bikes. So Kevin Gutierrez, Ed Koning, Evan Krakow, James Shepard, Dave Perrick, Lee Saltmizer, all those dudes, Ruben Castillo, all those dudes in that video changed. They're the reason why you're doing what you're doing. You know, like if you're a street rider. Who else? Taj. Let's see. There's so many and so few at the same time. I just think that there's some people that are made out to be legends, and I don't really know why. There's some dudes who really have done so much for the sport, and you don't get that. I would say if you're a kid now and you really want to know where all your stuff come from, watch Homeless Trash, watch Dirty Deeds, watch Nowhere Fast, watch all the Baco videos, watch what else? Watch Mat Hoffman Head First, watch Mad Matt, watch Agroman, and watch Ride On. Those would be the top ones.
Yeah, that's awesome. Taj is definitely a legend, you know, just to name one of the few that you named there. Mira, of course. Actually, the first BMX bike that I owned that was a true BMX bike was a Miraco bike.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I had the Black Pearl. It was like a complete bike.
I always thought they made a mistake with those bikes, man. I think that I always thought that he was the biggest name in BMX, and he needed to make those are the bikes that needed to be in like Target and Walmart. He needed to make mass market to get that out there, not try to do. For me.
No, I can definitely see where you're coming from. Like, you know, I always hear from people that Haro has their lower end stuff, and they do it through like Sport Check sometimes, which is like a Canadian sports store. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like Miraco definitely could have done something to maybe get more out there.
I just think that it was just, I don't know. I just think that he was the one person who had the possibility to really get BMX and bring a bigger market into it, and with his bikes, and instead decided to just sell it to bike shops.
Yeah. So in the intro, I mentioned that you were the first BMX rider to ever hit the mega ramp at XGames. Can you tell us how that happened?
Yeah, at X Games I was. Well, they didn't let bikes do it, and I was always telling them like, let me hit that. It was only like a year or so before they came up with the Mega Ramp, and I kept saying like, let me ride it, and they were like, no bike. And then about a month before X Games 2005, they were like, hey, you want to try to break the backfoot world record? And I think at the time it was Alan Cook, and it was like 50-some feet or something like that. I don't know, something like that, right? And so I was like, sure. And I'd never ridden it before, and I didn't get any practice. So I went up to Travis Pastrana's house, and he had like this motocross foam pit. So I just flew out there, and he wasn't even home. I just flew out there for a couple days by myself and just jumped past almost the whole distance of that into the foam pit, and I flipped it, and then I was trying to figure out how to 360 in it. At the time, I felt like you were going too fast to just spin up the lip. So I was pulling more like a backflip and then going into like a three table, and me taking my hand off. I did one hand once. I could like bone the front down, and it would pause the 360 for me. And then when I decided I wanted to bring it back, I could bring it back around. So the morning of the X Games, they said, hey, you get an hour before the gates open, and you can try to get this done. So Guinness was there, and the skaters were there doing practice. And I'd never even jumped it before. And so I jumped the first couple times, jumped it. Like maybe I jumped 3 times, maybe straight, jumped off, maybe the first time, I think. And then the 4th time I just went to flip it. I actually landed on the safety case and bounced a couple times. Then I just started trying to flip it. The problem was I was just going down the small side, not the big side. And at some point you can only go as far as the ramp is, right?
Right.
It was 50 feet to the sweet spot. So to break the record, you have to overshoot it. And I don't remember what the record was. It was like 64 or 62 or something, 63, something like that. So I had to overshoot it to get there. So I had to really slow that backflip down and then land low, like drop. So once we got that, I got relatively quick, like in about a half hour. I ran back up and I wanted to get to 360. So I did one 360, blew my tire out, popped it, split out. I think I split out another one. And then I got that 360 table at like 50-some feet or something like that.
Wow, that's insane. It's crazy to think how far mega ramp riding has gone with within BMX. Like this past X Games that we had, obviously you have Morgan Wade doing those huge one-handed double whips on the like big air quarter, and then obviously Ryan Williams doing the flip drop into the ramp, which was insane.
It was sick.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy just how far it has come. Did you ever think that it would get that crazy?
I don't know if I didn't think it would get that crazy. I didn't really think about it, to be honest with you.
No, that's fair.
But I do think that Morgan Wade doing that one-handed double tail whip is the gnarliest thing ever done on Mega Ramp.
I can definitely agree. I really liked Ryan Williams' runs, and I think that he definitely did a good job. But even when, he won the last X Games Mega Ramp for BMX, and I was kind of on the fence about it because I thought that the tricks that Morgan were doing were so next level, and especially that one-handed double whip. But I guess it's
what he did. He did the flip drop in, then he did the bike flip, right?
Bike flip,
and then he grabbed it, and then did the front flip twist, right?
Yeah.
Which every single one of those is nuts. Now Morgan did a double tail drop in, the no-handed like 360 backflip into the double tail whip one-hander, right?
Yeah.
Now I do believe, this is my opinion only because I can only make an opinion based on riding that ramp. The double tail drop in is more dangerous than the flip drop in. Because if you under rotate the flip, he's going to eject downward. Hopefully he catches tranny and he just slides down. If he over rotates it, he's just going to slide out on his back. The double tail up, if you're crooked and you get high sided, you underdo it.
Yeah.
You're going sideways, ejecting to the bottom. I'd probably say our Willie has him beat on the jump because no one else is doing that, and I've seen other people do what Morgan did.
Right.
But I do believe that Morgan has him beat by far on the double tail one-hander. And that's just, and I mean, and let's put it this way. And I also judge things like this, which maybe shouldn't be put into judging. but when I'm watching it and I'm not a judge, I have that luxury. If I was going to try, let's say tomorrow I was going to go to a vert ramp and try to learn one of those under resi, I could learn the front flip flare well before I could do a double tail one-hander.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a reason why you don't see anybody. There's a reason why you don't see any. You've seen other people do front flip flares too. Have you seen anybody else do double tail one-handers?
Not at all.
No, you don't. No, you don't see it. You don't ever see it. The only person you ever seen do it maybe was Ruben. Ruben maybe did one. I think Ruben may have done them, but you just Taj did one-handed tail ups. They're just a hard trick to do single one-handed tail ups. So to see a double is insane, especially at like 18 feet or whatever he did it at, 20 some feet or whatever. It's just, to me, it was no questions that it won.
Yeah, absolutely. There's really not too many people that have done, just a one-handed single whip. Like I know Scotty Kramer was doing them over his spine at the Incline Club, but yeah, there's like not very many people.
There's enough people who do them, but it's a handful over decades.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just so nuts. Who are some of your favorite riders at the moment?
I don't know if I have favorite riders anymore. I mean, Dennis Anderson is, to me, the best bike rider ever to touch a bicycle, probably. Nathan Williams is the bike rider I think everyone should be trying to be if you're a street rider. It's hard to. I can tell you who my favorite bike riders have been throughout time, but right now I don't really know. Like if I have a favorite, I'll be honest with you. I have people who I really, really are some of my favorite bike riders, but their Instagram has made me not as interested in their riding because they put up so much stuff because they have to. I think they feel like they have to make sure that they're always present and relevant, but all it's doing is just watering down all the stuff they do. Where I see it every day, I'm like, I just don't care.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely can agree with the Dennis Anderson. He is so next level. He's like,
it's insane.
Yeah, he's.
You know who else doesn't? You know who else doesn't get enough credit, and I don't think it's gotten enough credit through the 40 years he's been riding or whatever. It's Dennis McCoy.
Yeah, that's actually really true.
It's crazy to me when people realize how good he is. Dennis McCoy is still better than 98% of the professional bike riders that are pro bike riders now.
Well, he's
legitimately like 98% probably.
Oh, absolutely. And he rides vert, which is insane. He was doing like 900s last summer, and he's like, is he not in his 50s now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so crazy to me that DMC is 50 doing 900s like on a huge 13-foot ramp,
It's bananas.
Yeah, it's so nuts. Funny fact about the 900s. So the city that I live in Kitchener-Waterloo. It's about an hour from Toronto. The first ever 900, which was done by Mat Hoffman, was done right here in Kitchener-Waterloo.
Yeah, 1989.
Were you here for that at all? Probably not.
No, I was.
You were still a kid then, right?
No, 1989. I would have been like, I don't know. That's weird. Yeah, I would have been like 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah, I think you were saying that's when you started.
No, yeah, I mean, I started riding I would say 1990 is when I started.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so crazy that happened here, and like a lot of the kids in the area have no idea. And like when you tell them that, they still like don't even want to believe you on it. But it's pretty crazy that, that 900 was done here. So
yeah, on a bike that was no better than a bike that's sold at Walmart now.
Oh, exactly. Super heavy, which is another thing. Like on like
those bikes were just terrible though. Those bikes, no, this was before the heavy point. This was like in the like shafted forks and like shafted stem and terrible. Like literally, bikes at Walmart now are better than the bikes they rode then. Like that's not even an exaggeration.
It's so crazy to like think about that, obviously, because any move that you like just don't land, right at all is just not gonna work out for you.
No, you're dead. That's when people are like, "Oh, that bike's not going to hold up." You're like, "Give me a break, guys."
Yeah, exactly.
Bikes are so strong now.
Yeah, bikes have definitely changed over the last, 30 years. They can withstand a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So let's get into some of the stunts and acting that you've done. So a while back, you had a TV show with Catfish called Strangers in Danger, a reality show where you guys would just travel to other countries and learn about the culture there. This included doing odd jobs, eating weird food, like a living octopus at one point, and just so much more. So let's talk about how that show actually came to be. Were you somebody that were you a creator with it at all, or were you hired on?
No, I was hired. So Catfish had tried. I think Catfish had auditioned. Catfish was doing. I think he was hosting props on Fuel, and I think he went and auditioned for this show, and then they were trying to find a co-host. They tried to get a bunch of people and couldn't find anybody. Interviewed, and then he suggested me, so I went in. This is crazy. I went in on like a Friday and had like a 5-minute conversation with the producer. And he was like, "All right, well, within 5 minutes, he was like, you're our guy. I'll let you know Monday if we're leaving Thursday for Vietnam for the pilot." And I was like, I'd been in that situation so much, and they're like, it's happening, where nothing ever happened. So I just was like, whatever, dude. And I didn't think about it all weekend. Then Monday he calls, he goes, "We're leaving Thursday. You like the network said yes to you. We're leaving Thursday for Vietnam for 10 days. And that was it. But I think I was originally hired on to be Catfish's co-host, I think. And then I think once we got going, they realized that wasn't really the scenario. It wasn't really a co-host scenario. And we didn't really know how our chemistry was going to be. And it turned out to be we ended up taking roles on the show, and it made for something really special at that time, I think.
Oh, exactly. I was going to say, you and Catfish are actually such a great combo. That show is like pretty cool from the stuff that I've seen of it. Would you be able to tell us a couple of your favorite moments from the show?
I mean, at the time, it was a really stressful show to be on, and it wasn't fun. But looking back, it was really, really such a special, amazing thing. I mean, we did so much wild stuff. I don't even know where to start. I mean, I had a balloon shot out of my mouth by Lebanese special forces with a real gun. I got to do, like, if you look up 10 most dangerous jobs in the world, I think we did 9 of them at the place where it says. I mean, we got to do so many crazy things. It's a shame that that they're not on iTunes.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that they wouldn't try and capitalize on that, do it on iTunes or even just some sort of streaming platform.
We're working on it still, but now it's so old that it's a hard thing to sell. And I think the people who own it want to make a little bit of money, and you don't make any money on iTunes. So
yeah, that's for sure. So as I'm sure many know, you are also a stuntman, not just a BMX professional. And you actually have acting experience as well. So you had roles in Mall Cop, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and you were doing stunts in tons of other Marvel movies, obviously Captain America, Ant-Man, Captain Marvel. How did you get into doing stuntman work, especially for Marvel, too?
Well, I always wanted to be a stuntman. I had an interview in Ride magazine in like 95 or something. And it says that I wanted to be a stuntman when I grew up. And I started doing stunts in high school, BMX stunts. And that's how it started. I just did BMX stunts. And it took, from the time I started doing stunts in like 95 or 94, it took until 2005 for them to let me do something that wasn't bike. I never made it my number one thing because I was always riding bike. But it took a long time of doing jobs here and there. Whenever someone would call, and then finally it just started picking up more in 2005, and I've just been doing a lot more of it since then. As far as Marvel goes, working for Marvel is no different than working on any other show. You just get hired and you work on it.
Yeah, that stuff's so crazy though. Like how much work goes into obviously green screening and whatnot with Marvel. Is there a lot of it there?
I I mean, yeah, there's a ton of great things, but I'm going to stop you for a second because I feel like terrible that I couldn't remember this before, and it just popped into my head. It's Jason Fallon. He's the one who did the grind to flip and landed on his head.
Yeah, it was him. He did that was also him, obviously, that did the flip to bar. I knew it was a Jason. I just couldn't remember
and I don't know why. I don't know why my brain had a brain fart there, and I couldn't think. But he deserves so much props for that. So, anyways, sorry, Jason. I just was having a moment where everything just can't remember anything. So, a lot of greenfield Marvel, but a lot of stuff that's practical too. So, it's great. You know, right now I'm currently working on Suicide Squad 2. I have to go back in Atlanta. I have to go back to back there in end of January to work and beginning of February to finish it off, the stuff that I'm working on.
That's pretty crazy. So that would be with DC, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so nuts that you're doing that. So let's talk about your role in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. You actually had a little bit of an acting role there. How did that come to be?
Well, I'm actually fully stunt in that.
Okay.
I'm a full stuntman in that movie. I don't really have much acting. There's no lines or anything. I have a couple closer on screen stuff. My buddy is the guy who the writer and director, James Gunn. And so when I was working on the movie, he gave me a couple slots that were like a little more featured. And so that's how those came about with Guardians. And the stunt coordinator, Tom Harper, who's a friend of mine as well, he knew that I was buddies with James, and they put me on the core team. So I was lucky enough and appreciated that they did that, and I was working that movie for like 4.5 or 5 months.
Wow, that's so crazy. I know that you did have a little bit of acting in Mall Cop then, correct?
Yeah, I got Mall Cop. I play the bad guy. I play a bad guy in that, and I mean, I'm in the movie for about an hour in and out before I meet my untimely demise. But probably about half the lines got cut as well.
And then Rick Thorne was one of your like bad guy people as well, correct?
Yeah, he was.
There's a clip that I found online. I didn't pull it for this, but it's like, I think it might be a cell phone angle of you guys like jumping over like down the escalator, or like going down the escalator and then hitting those jumps.
Yeah, I jump a big ball pit. It was like a little mini mega.
That would have been awesome, I bet.
It was scary the first time we did it, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So can you explain some of the stunts that you've done or the training that you did for these movies at all? I
mean, it's bike riding. I do a lot of hitting the ground, and then I think the rest of it sort of comes with opportunity to do it. A lot of wire work, or wire works and fire burns and things like that. So I definitely could be training more. But you kind of train as you go, and you have buddies you train with, and you do things with, and sort of and sometimes I know that if I have something coming up, I'll go and work on it with some other guys, so I make sure that I'm ready, just like anything else. For sure. So out of all the movies that you've worked on, would you have a favorite at all? I mean, Guardians is really fun. Suicide Squad has been a real blast to work on. The last couple of months, the last couple months has been really, really fun to work on, and that just has to do with who you're working with and what's going on at the time. But I mean, everything's always fun. I'm always really gracious to be working, but and I'm not a person who lives too much. I'm like thinking, oh, that was the greatest time ever. But I know that I've really enjoyed working on Suicide Squad. Yeah, that'll be really good. I'll have to go and check that out when it comes out. Yeah, it's going to be, all I can say is from what I've seen, it's going to be really great. That's awesome. So I got some questions from the fans here. These were all sent in through Instagram DMs. So anybody in the future, if you have any questions for the guests that we have, send them in.
But the first one here comes from Lee Barker. He wants to know what it was like to be hooked up by Hoffman back in the day.
I mean, at the time, it was like a dream come true. It felt like you were part of something super special and a part of something that mattered. And to be honest with you, I was so young, and it was it didn't feel real, I think. But you definitely felt like you were part of an elite team for sure. And it definitely put you in a headspace where you're like, oh, I've got to show up. I gotta keep on, inventing stuff and riding hard. It was, because you felt like you were a part of something and you didn't want to let everyone else down.
For sure. Yeah, I bet Hoffman would have been so crazy. Like, even just the name now, people still think of it. Let's see here. So Barker also wondered what it's like to backflip over a helicopter, and how did that actually come up as a thing that you did?
That was for Central Stack Video MTV, maybe around the year 2000, and they asked if I could come up with something, and I'd set off a helicopter. We built like an Evel Knievel style roll, and it was more like a mega ramp before mega ramp, and we built it completely wrong. We built the lip too small and too steep, and I made it so we could move the landing. So the day before, I flipped 8 feet, then I drew a line on the roll in and moved, and I basically rolled in without pedaling. Because when you start pedaling, you can't judge your speed. You rolled in without pedaling, flipped it at 8 feet, then I moved it back 8 feet, and then went up the roll in 8 feet, and just kept doing that until I got the distance. And then day of, once the helicopter was in there, no one could be around the helicopter, because if I hit it, it would flip upside down and just tear everything apart until it disintegrated. So everyone was like 50 yards away at least.
Right.
But on the day of, when the helicopter speed, I was taking half crank and pumping. I was pumping, and I was overshooting and over rotating. I over rotated like 3 or 4 times. And then finally I just said, screw it. And I went down 8 feet. Now that meant I was going to go 8 feet shorter. And I said, I'm going to go down, and I'm going to try to, there was like a 1 foot safety case on it. I'm going to try to hook that safety case so I'd stop over rotating. So that's what I did. I mean, I could have easily died by doing that, but that's how it worked out. And it was weird. It was funny. Like a decade later, it was like they did some show on MTV that was something of the sorts of what is the 10 craziest things that's ever happened on MTV, and I think I was number 6.
Wow. Yeah, it's pretty insane to actually like just fathom what goes into that, obviously, like if you come up short, you can die. Like, that's not to fuck around on, obviously.
I mean, legit, you're dead.
Yeah,
you die in front of everybody. Yeah.
That definitely had to kind of play with your head a little bit, eh?
I mean, I was young, and I thought I could do anything back then, so I just went and got it done.
That's fair.
I was more worried about letting people down than I was about dying.
Yeah. Well, I think the entire BMX community is happy that you pulled that and that you're still here with us today, obviously. Wesley Thoman asks, how many times did Tony Hawk eat shit learning the backflips on a BMX with you?
I don't remember that he did that. We must have done it at Woodward or something. I'm guessing. I don't even remember that happening. But I mean, when I vaguely, I kind of think I remember that. But Tony's a pretty talented person, so I bet you it only took, every time I ever teach anybody who doesn't ride a bike flips, it literally takes like under 5 tries.
Flips really aren't that difficult,
Well, it isn't about the flip being difficult. It's about them being able to go down the roll and pedal fast enough and be able to get up. I think we take for granted how hard it is to just jump out, the skills needed to go up a transition going fast and not just buckle into the transition. So like, it's always more about them being able to get off the jump and just jump a jump box straight and clear it. Right?
Yeah.
That to me is like, if they can do that, then they can do a flip.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I've always felt
if you want to commit to it, you can do a flip at that point.
Right. Flips are really just about commitment, like They're really not that difficult. You know, I've done them a couple times. I don't really do them too often. Like, I've never even done it to wood or anything. I'll do it over an entire resi into the landing. I've just never really had that like thing where I care that much about doing it to wood, and I just don't see myself really doing it as like a trick that often. But that's just me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done one in a while.
Yeah, that's fair. How do you feel about front flips?
Oh, front flips are stupid.
Yeah, I thought I heard you talking about how they're really dumb.
I don't know. I mean, it's like I don't like I had once I tried to learn something. I told myself I was gonna for mega ramp. I was gonna do a foo-fanoo to front flip on the quarter pipe.
Right.
And like I went to Woodward and I tried to learn it. I built a sub box on top of the vert ramp, and I was like airing up the tail tap and then trying to foo-fanoo. I mean, then trying to front flip into the foam pit. And then I just was like, I was getting around. I was like, oh, I'm gonna try one just on the resi, and I just eject my back on the onto the flat, and I just at that moment I realized that I knew front flips were stupid from before I started learning them. But I just don't think they look cool. But I don't think they look cool on anything, on snowboards, on rollerblades, on scooters. I just don't think they look cool anyways. But with that said, I've seen some people do front flip stuff where I'm like, that is insane. But I just don't think they're cool looking.
No, that's definitely I always feel like front flips are only cool if you can do them like, I guess the Scotty Kramer style, where you go pretty much like straight up and straight down. It's like, I always see kids where they do it and they'll land like at the very bottom of the actual transition on the other side, and they don't get much height.
Yeah.
To me, it always just looks so ugly, but, you know, I can't do front flips at all. So we actually had we had front flip god himself, Zach Gerber, last week on the podcast, and it was really interesting talking to him.
I mean, yeah, I it's one of those things. I just don't think it looks cool. I'm not saying it isn't hard or isn't gnarly. I just personally don't like it. That's just my personal, yeah.
No, of course. So Kyle Mantha asks what it takes to be a judge when it comes to the X Games or other big contests, and some of the key things that judges are looking for when it comes to a contest run. But before we get into that, I know you were a judge on the Real BMX Street Series a couple years back as well, so I'd love to hear about that as well.
Oh, dude, I don't even remember. Was I a judge on that? Was it? I mean, I Real BMX. Oh, wait, the Real BMX. Oh, yeah. The video thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I judged it very different. Let's go to both of them real quick, because those are two very different things. Because one's a video street contest, and the other one is usually takes place on a venue.
Correct.
I do believe, and I'll probably get a lot of hate for saying this, is that a lot of the judges shouldn't be judges. I don't think you should be a judge unless you can do. I don't think you should be a judge unless you can do it at an almost pro level right now, not before, but right now. And I'm talking about on the kind of course that is being ridden right now, because I mean, I'm a professional bike rider, but should I judge a flatland event? Hell no. Really, I could judge a vert event, but should I be judging a vert event when I have no idea what it's like to go to do a tail up 10 feet over opening? No. I do think that when you see like a bowl or a street contest, or like especially a bowl or a park contest, I think that every judge should get 30 minutes or an hour on the course earlier in the week, so they can really be down in it and see what lines and how hard they are. Because sometimes I'll see lines and someone will just do like a transfer, and it'll be like the judge won't even talk about it. But I've been on the course, I'm like, ooh, that transfer is almost impossible to get speed for, or to do, and so I think that to really judge something fairly, you have to know what you're doing. You have to know what they're doing. So if you can't get on the course, ride it fast, and know what it's taking to do the lines and be able to get the certain, be able to do line and trick after trick after trick on a course, then I don't think you really have an idea what you're doing, what you're judging, even if you can ride a park. I just don't think so. Same with Mega Ramp. I think if you've never ridden Mega Ramp, you can't really judge it, because it's not the same as jumping a box. I think I think that the judges for a few of those need to be the pros that are just not making the cut for those events. I also think that if you're super opinionated about a certain style of riding, you should not be a judge. I've heard judges say, like, that guy's never going to win because I don't like the way he rides. And you're changing that dude's life, man. This guy's a small window to really do something good with it, to really take advantage of the skill that he has. It shouldn't be based on one person's opinion on the way he rides on that day, you know?
No, I can definitely agree.
Whoever rides the best that day, whether you like him or not, is the winner. Now, that's not to say the judges they have now, I think they're great judges. I just think that we're at a point where bike riding is so hard and everyone's so good that the riders need to really know what they're looking at, you know? Because then I also think that, like, a double tail when I was in contest was a big deal. Now it's nothing.
Yeah, now it's almost like if you don't do one, you get points deducted, obviously, right? Like,
yeah, and I just think that you need to be. I really think that you need to know the ramp they're riding, and know it now, not before.
Yeah, exactly. I find it weird that they don't really think of that. You know, like, it is actually, you make a really good point about having judges that know what they're talking about, you know, and have seen everything and have been through that same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you just have to. I mean, it's just like, how do I know how hard it is to ride this course unless I've ridden it? If some dude does transfers, if some guy transfers something and it just looks like a transfer, well, how do I know how hard that is to transfer? He's the only guy who did it. Does that mean it's too dumb for everybody to do, or does that mean that it's really hard and no one else can do it? What does that mean? Let me get down there. Let me go fast at that transfer and see what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when it comes to Real Street's different because they kind of give you guidelines on how to judge things. There was like a certain, at least the years that I did it, there was a certain amount of, like, I basically made categories, if I remember right. I made, like, trick, style, use of spot is a dumb one because you're like, I don't know what the spot is. I only see what I'm seeing shown. So what do I know if they used it right? So it was like, it's something like style and trick and difficulty and variety, all these different things. And I would give, I took it very serious. And let's say there was 8 different categories. I would give a number. I'd watch a video part like 50 times, and I would give a number, or 10 times, or whatever it was, of difficulty 1 through 5, 5 being best, right? So if it was difficulty of the whole part, I give it a part. If it was trick variations or trick variety, and if the guy did 8 tail whips, 8 bar spins, and that's what his trick went like, he got a lower score on the variety because it was the same shit over and over again. And then I would add those numbers up, and that would give me a base on where I would start to judge from. Right?
Yeah.
And then, so what I would do is I would add, and also clip count, because in those videos you only have 90 seconds, so you usually get an average between 12 and 19 clips, right? And
correct.
So I would also give a number on what your clip count was, because that mattered, right? Like I would give a 1 through 5, and so I would have all, I'd have all five people, whatever it was, and I'd have numbers for them, and they'd all be within a couple of each other. And then I would watch the parts and really watch them as a whole, and then add a 0.2 here or there, and see where it came out. And if I had 2 guys that were tied, and this was important to me, and I've gotten disagreements with other judges. There's 2 guys who was tied because, in one of them, me and Doyle, Doyle was me and someone else it was like a tie between the winner, and it was a tie, and Doyle had to be the tiebreaker. And the reason I judged it was like that was because I think I felt like the riders their parts were dead, like all their tricks were equal, all their spots they were equal as they could be, right? Like all their shit was equal, except one dude had like 15 tricks and the other dude had 17. And if those extra two were just whatever clips, then it would be a little bit tougher. But if those extra 2 are bangers, because at that point, all 12 to 19 tricks are all bangers. You know, there's only room for bangers. So if dudes were dead even, but one dude had more clips, which means he had 2 more bangers in it, then I kind of feel like I got to give it to him.
Yeah, I could see that because it's more effort put into the video part.
He's doing more. You know, like, so there were some that were tight, and so that was what the decision, the final decision for me. But a lot of people don't feel that way. But I take the judging really seriously because I know it changes people's lives and it changes their livelihood. And so I try to take it. I have 0 favorites when that comes to it. I have 0 favorites and 0 influence on who and how I like the person, how they ride, and if I like it or not. Has 0 influence on how I judge a contest.
So obviously with it being a video contest, you also have to judge like the editing and whatnot. So music choice and the way that clips have been placed. Yeah. Did that come into...
Yeah, those all get numbers. Those all get numbers too. And I forget what I have, but I had sort of criteria that I had done on my own. This isn't in my head. Like, I'd have sheets of papers with scores all over and like making notes and like different tricks. Even when, like, back in the day, when you have good judges, back in the day, like when we would judge Mentor Jam or something else or anything else, we would have sheets of paper and you'd watch a run and we'd be writing down tricks and what they did and how many tricks they did in a row before they crashed or before they took a break. Because you could have a dude who did like 4 tricks and never crashed, or you could have a dude who did like 6 tricks but crashed 3 times, and it would influence on how you would judge them. Judging's a hard thing, and I don't envy anybody who has to do it, but I do believe that there should be a little bit of qualifying skills before you're a judge.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that. So when it comes to like contest judging, again, just to throw this back, let's talk about, like, you know, obviously the course usage. I always find that I see people, at least at like local contests here, so they do one at Joyride every year, which is about an hour from where I live. And most of the kids always stick to, like, you know, the one area that they're really familiar with. Would it make more sense for them to use more of the course because it actually does give you a better score, or is that just a myth?
No, I think so, for sure. If you're using more of the course, definitely is better, but you also have to do stuff on the course. Just because you want to use course, you're going to ride all the way across the course and do nothing, doesn't help your score either. So I would just say, like, design your run to use the entire course and use it to the best of your ability. Like, the thing is, just learn how to ride the whole course. Learn how to ride it in a way. It's like when I see, it's like there's some dudes like Daniel Sandoval. That was the name I was looking for earlier, who did that trick that I said it was just a tail whip to decade air.
Yeah, he does a lot of those.
That's the thing. Yeah, not just, you know, but like I remember we were in Germany once and he was getting ready for to go and to start park, and I was like, all right guys, I'm out of here. And he was like, you're not going to stay and watch? And I said, like, no, park is the most boring contest to watch these days. And he was blown away in my head because obviously that's his deal, and there was no disrespect for him. And I told him, look, you're legitimately one of the most talented dudes ever to ride a bike in this venue. And there's a lot of you guys, and all of you guys have all decided to do the same 6 tricks and look exactly the same. I don't need to watch it. I already know what you're doing. And I always thought, like, if someone like him, who's so talented, would spend the time to learn how to ride your bike like Gary Young, and then implement all of your skills the way Gary Young rides, you'd be unstoppable. But a lot of those contest dudes, it's weird to me. They all look exactly the same, and they're doing stuff that is far beyond any level that most people will ever. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I think it's weird that they all have the same. I mean, I hate to say it, but disgusting style. And it's disgusting is not the right word. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But it's very a robotic style. It's lost its flowing, cool. No one looks different doing stuff. All tail whips and bar spins are all these flicky things, and they all look alike, where 20 years ago or 15 years ago, everyone's tail whip looked different. If you saw Dave Asado do a tail whip, or Dave Frymouth, or Taj, or Jay Miron, or Mat Hoffman, or Van Homan, they all look different. But now they all look the same. And somewhere in there, no-handers got real ugly. But I don't understand. To me, I don't understand that. You have these guys who are, like I said earlier, they are the best dudes that have ever even touched a bike, and they've all decided to look the same. And it's really strange to me because it's only going to take one guy's going to figure out that he's like, wow, maybe I should have my own style and do all these tricks, and he's going to be the biggest thing out there.
I would say that right now, Boyd Hilder, I'm not sure if you know who he is. He's like a young version.
Yes, of course.
He's like a young version of Dennis Anderson in my eyes, where he does use like a good portion of the course. A young version,
or just he's Dennis Anderson.
Yeah, that's tough, actually. You know, he definitely.
I mean, from 100 feet away, could you tell the difference?
Yeah, right. He's like his lost long.
But I don't even consider Dennis. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the dudes who ride those UCI events.
Oh no, I know. I know exactly what you mean.
Those are the dudes I'm talking about.
Yeah,
it's just a different. I mean, when you go to the Battle of Hastings, that's a special event. I mean, when I saw Chris Kyle drop it and ride that place, what he's doing is not the same thing as what I've been doing. Like he's doing something different. Like it's something more evolved, and it's like he's defying gravity. Like some of those dudes, I don't understand what they're doing. Like it's like I'm doing two different sports. They're so good.
Yeah, exactly. So what I meant by like bringing up Boyd Hilder and Dennis Anderson is that Boyd is like, you know, obviously he's taking a lot of influence from Dennis, and I think that's like we need more contests like the Battle of Hastings or the Van Duren contests, stuff like that. Like these UCI events are just getting so ridiculous where I completely agree. Like it's all the same tricks. It's all, you know, everybody looks the same. It's going to be really difficult to tell who's who, like when it comes Olympic Day. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I'm not taking anything away from those dudes. In no way do I want that to come off as me saying they suck or they're not good or they don't deserve everything. My point is that I think it's weird that they've all decided to look like each other. And if one of them decided to put a little bit of its own, whatever that is, put a little bit of himself into his bike riding, other than making it about getting these tricks done, I think that'll make all the difference for him when it comes Olympic time.
For sure.
He will stand out. He'll stand out.
No, I can definitely agree. Something that I did want to ask is obviously, like, you know, when it comes to these UCI events, the judges that are there, I don't know who judges it, but they're probably, you know, good at what they do. But would you say that like crowd pleasing tricks like, you know, tail whips and flips and flares and stuff like that get a higher score because of, you know, they are a very difficult trick, but do they just get a higher score because it makes the crowd, like, I guess, more hyped for it or what?
I mean, honestly, I have zero input on that because I've never been to one of those events. I've just seen them on TV. So I have no idea. Like I said, some of the most insane riding goes down at those things. I have no idea who judges them. I have no idea who. I mean, the only stuff I mean, when I was talking about judging before, I'm talking about XGames and the van stuff and Battle of Hastings and things like that. But those ones, I have no idea anything about them, so I really can't speak on any of that.
For sure. So off to the next question here. Harvester Bikes wants to know some stories behind Mat Hoffman's Pro BMX games. You got anything off the top of your head?
No, I mean, there's not really anything about it. We just, you know, I helped a lot with all the builds in the beginning. We get like new builds every week and a half or something, to help the gameplay. My parents' backyard was in the first game. I'm actually a secret character in Sean Farmer's Pro Snowboarder, and I was almost a secret character in Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, but it didn't happen at the last minute. But no, I don't know. I wish there was a good BMX game, though. Well, no, I don't. I don't care, but I wish it'd be cool if there was one that was on a platform and not on your phone.
Yeah, I kind of, you know, it's really sad that we don't have anything like that. Like, I know a lot of people want like Skate 4 from EA, and I don't think it'll ever happen, but it sucks that they never went ahead with a BMX game. And I get it, like the market's a lot smaller. Like I would say that skateboarding's a much bigger sport, or just, you know, it's a much bigger culture for one than BMX. I don't know if you would agree, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
So
here's the thing: here's the thing with bike riding that is it's like this. Bike riding has made it like not cool to have low end bikes. They've made it not cool for companies to do that traditionally over the last 20 some years. Like if you make crappy bikes, you're the people aren't into you. You can only be hardcore bikes. That's it. Well, there's the problem right there. There's just not enough bike riders and people to sustain that. Do you think skateboarding would be as big as if it wasn't selling shoes and clothes to every person who walked into the mall? It was only funded by people buying skate decks who are actually hardcore skaters, and there would be no industry either.
oh, of course.
For some reason, BMX has decided that the only money that should be spent in BMX is money that comes from hardcore BMXers. When there's 10,000 bikes sold every year in big box stores, why isn't when you go into Target, why isn't it Volumes and Hoffmans and S&Ms and Fits and Colts in there? Like whether you think $100 bike is a piece of shit or not, it doesn't matter. There's $100 customer, and that's where people get started. It's baffling to me that no one is that's it's like a taboo. It's gotten a little better, but that's why BMX is so small, because BMX wants it small.
Do you think there's any like positive things that come from BMX being so small?
No. And I don't know if there's any positive things being big. I know there'll be more money in it with big, which is better for the sport because you have more pros who can make a living, who can dedicate more time to riding their bike, which then pushes the sport more teams that can go on more trips. It means more media coverage. It means more photos, more video parts. It means everything. BMX, being big never ruined BMX. Dickheads ruined BMX. BMX has always been the same to me. It doesn't matter what contests are going on or who gets into it. I'm still riding bikes with my friends. So that doesn't affect anything. I think it's when you just want something to complain about, you can find something to complain about.
For sure. Well, the last question on here we kind of already covered before, but that was what is the scariest trick you've ever done? And that was sent in from Bin Jump Bradley.
I mean, the rail flip's pretty scary. I remember the grind to flip is that I remember telling myself I'm not leaving here unless my bike breaks or I'm going to the hospital. And like I was like shaking every time I went back because every slam on it was so terrible into that ditch. And then I never knew. My hands were bleeding like out of my gloves. And I remember afterwards I pulled it. I almost came to tears just because I didn't want to do it anymore. I was so scared. And then the grind to loop was pretty scary. Those last couple runs where we took all the safety precautions out because you're just like, it's either 100% dead or you pretty much pull it. So those two are probably the scariest. But there's been a few scary things that have happened. But those ones are probably the ones that have been documented and remember the most.
Of course. Yeah, I definitely can agree that those two things are so crazy. And then obviously we talked about the helicopter flip, and that's another huge one that it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it's just so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the helicopter flip, if I would do it now, I was in a different part of I was in a different mindset then. Doing it now, I'd be pretty scared.
Yeah.
But like if I did it now with the same setup, it would be pretty scary. Yeah.
Mike, this has been amazing. Thank you for everything you've done for BMX, and I truly mean that. Without you, who knows what BMX would be like. It means the world to me that you came on the show and told me these stories, and I wish you the best, and I can't wait to see what you get up to next year. Obviously, we've got Suicide Squad 2 coming out, and I'd love to see the work that you did in that.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. And just I'll just throw this out there. I am starting a podcast called Keep Bleeding, and I think we're launching January 13th. I think it's available I think you can go on iTunes now and subscribe. I don't know if it'll be available on the other ones until it's out, but yeah, anybody's interested, I'm interviewing all sorts of stuntmen and actors and bike riders and skateboarders and snowboarders. And,
yeah, I'm super. Yeah, I'm sure.
We're talking about all sorts of really, really cool stories. So it'd be great if everybody checked it out.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to repost it on my Instagram the day that it comes out, and then everybody can go check that out. That'll be really good. It'll be really nice to hear like long form stuff with you. I feel like you're just so good at actually like speaking with people. I actually watched the one that you did with Chris Rabb. Oh. Hey, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Well, that's all right. But yeah, but hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad this worked out.
For sure. Yeah, well, everybody, we'll see you in the next one. Mike, stay on the line. I just want to say a couple things, and then, yeah. Peace out, everybody. Have a good one.